Hi, this is George Alger. Welcome to today's segment of Our Ventura TV. Today we're going to be speaking about the Reagan Library. And joining us is Melissa Giller, who is a spokesperson for the Reagan Library. Welcome, Melissa. And let's start out with the most basic question. What is the Reagan Library?
Well, the Reagan Library is the presidential library that supports and promotes the legacy of President Ronald Reagan. We have all of his archives, his photos, his gifts, his papers, his memos from all 8 years of his presidency, and even from his 8 years as governor of California, and some post-presidential. And it's the museum portion of the Reagan Library that guests come to tour through and actually get to, see his life here at the Reagan Library.
Okay, since most people who would visit it would be more acquainted with the museum, is the library actually not available to the public?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the Reagan Library portion is open Monday through Friday, 9 to 5 by appointment only. And it's for people, let's say authors, scholars, students, someone writing a paper, someone writing a book that needs to do research on, let's say, the Cold War. And so they'll call and they'll make an appointment requesting documents and papers and maybe even photographs relating to Ronald Reagan and the Cold War. Maybe they can narrow it down to his meetings with Mikhail Gorbachev. And then we actually have a room called the research room, and you go in and our archivists bring you those papers and photos for you to study.
Okay. Now, is the term library more a tradition, since it would seem most people would view it as a museum?
Yeah, it's interesting. We're all called libraries, the Nixon Library, the Reagan Library, the Bush Library, but you're right, it's the museum portion that the public is familiar with. When the Presidential Library and Museum System was set up, they just named it that. The National Archives and Records Administration, or NARA, oversees the entire presidential library system. That's what it was named, and so that's just what it's been in its history. Of course, President Obama's Presidential Library and Museum is currently being built, and then President Trump will make one in some time in the future.
Okay. Do all presidents have a library?
All presidents since the start of the National Archives Presidential Library System. I believe there are 13. I believe Obama is 14, and then Trump would be 15.
Okay, very good. Of course, nowadays it seems like politics is more divisive than ever. And I know the museum is open to everyone, but can you address this idea of politics as it relates to a museum/library?
Yeah, that's a great question. There's a lot of people who will say to us, Ronald Reagan was a fine man, but I'm a Democrat, so I don't see myself ever stepping foot on your property. And we understand that, but we want to be so much more than just a presidential museum dedicated to a Republican president. Here, if you come to the Reagan Museum, yes, you're learning about Ronald Reagan and his life and his legacy and what he did as president of the United States, but you're actually seeing and touring through the actual Air Force One airplane that served 7 presidents, Republican and Democrat. You're seeing a full-scale replica of the Oval Office used by every president. You're seeing a real piece of the Berlin Wall. So you're seeing things that are outside of the Republican domain. And also twice a year, so almost 12 months of every year, we have a special exhibition here. And those are geared toward the masses. We've done them on the Vatican, on Pompeii, on Titanic, on the FBI. So you can come up here to get a history lesson, and then also maybe walk on board Air Force One, walk on board Marine One, see the Oval Office or the Berlin Wall, and get a real take on the American presidency as a whole.
Very good. Now, the library is in Ventura County, and it's on an amazing piece of property. Could you speak about how it came about to own that magnificent land?
Yeah, so presidents actually start working on their presidential library and museums while they're in office. So President Reagan and his team started working in about 1987. Remember, he stayed in office until January of '89. And as they were approaching the end of the presidency, they actually set a determination that the Reagan Library was going to be on the Stanford campus. And they were working with Stanford to make that happen. And just a few months before groundbreaking, Stanford actually changed their mind. And so suddenly Ronald Reagan and his team were scrambling, looking for a new location. There were 2 gentlemen, Blakely Schwartz, who were landowners and developers who owned the 100 acres up here on the Reagan Library campus. And they offered to donate the 100 acres to President Reagan and his foundation to build his library on the campus. Since then, we've actually purchased another 250 acres of surrounding hillside, not to expand the Reagan Library, but to preserve the viewshed, so that when you're standing in the Air Force One Pavilion and you're looking out the magnificent glass wall out into the mountains, you aren't seeing homes and businesses, you're seeing mountains and landscape just the way President Reagan would have wanted it.
Very good. Could you speak about the visitors? For instance, I imagine people come from all around the world.
Yes. So pre-pandemic, we all look at the world now as pre and post. Pre-pandemic, we were the most visited presidential library in the system. We averaged about 375,000 visitors a year. Of course, most come local. Most are Ventura County residents coming from our local cities, or LA, or the San Fernando Valley, or Pasadena, or the Antelope Valley. But we get visitors from around the world. We have so many visitors that come from, former sort of Cold War blocks, Poland and Germany and things like that want to come. And we have people who actually want to come to thank Ronald Reagan for helping grant their freedom. We have a lot of people who want to see all the presidential libraries, and we'll do a road trip in an RV and go from, state to state to visit the various libraries. Post-pandemic, we are still the most visited presidential library, but our numbers are about 40 to 50% lower than they were. We're working on building that back up and hope that over time, as people are more comfortable being out and some of these variants decrease in their spread, we can start getting more visitors here to the library again.
Very good. Now, any president, of course, is a focal point of national and international politics and activity. I'm wondering, is there a sort of brief statement that is used to sort of represent Reagan's legacy?
There is, and it's actually a statement used by said by Margaret Thatcher, that Ronald Reagan helped end the Cold War without ever firing a shot. And that's the story we try and tell here, that he believed so strongly in our nation's military. He believed so strongly on reinstituting national pride throughout our country, and not just freedom and democracy here in America, but freedom and democracy worldwide. And that's the story we tell within our walls.
Very good. Melissa, we're just about out of time. I'm wondering if there's a website that viewers can go to for more information, and if you have a summating message you'd like to leave with the viewers.
Yeah, so thank you. It's real simple. It's just simply Reagan Library.com. You can find out all of our information, our hours of operation. You can pre-purchase tickets. You can see the events we have. We have a very robust lineup of events. And again, my last statement, which just sort of summarize what we said just a few minutes ago, that we're not just about people who follow Ronald Reagan. We're not just about Republicans. We are about American citizens, or even people around the world who want to learn about the American presidency as a whole, and want to learn just more about how our democracy got here. See a piece of history, touch a piece of history. You can actually touch our piece of the Berlin Wall. You can walk on board Air Force One. And so it's just a great educational learning environment that's entertaining at the same time.
Well said. Thank you very much, Melissa. We're going to wrap things up now.
Thanks for having me.
So this is George Alger signing off for this segment of Our Ventura TV. Until we meet again.